Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, progressives. Yes, we are here, and welcome to the January 30th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278. The lines are open, so give us a call, send us a text. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, Twitter stream, and iHeartRadio. Email us or email me, I should say, at richard@wcpt820.com. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. There you can get the short version and long version of Choose Views, of course. Joan Esposito, live, local and progressive. Patty Vasquez driving you home. And the big picture with Edwin Eisendrath out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Check out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform because there is lots of good stuff there. We're keeping it moving this morning. We've got a great busy morning because why? Tell me why. We've got Cook County President Toni Preckwinkle. I am excited to talk with her this morning. She is phenomenal, and I've had nothing but great experiences with her over the years. And we will have State Representative Norma Hernandez with us in the 7:30 hour. So looking forward to having both of those wonderful leaders with us this morning. And those of you who are not in the Chicagoland area, you may not. These are names that may not necessarily resonate with you, but Ms. Preckwinkle and Ms. Hernandez are strong leaders in the Chicagoland and area and state of Illinois. So we'll be talking to both of them. Also today, of course, Joan Esposito will be joined from 2 to 5, of course, by the Atlantic's Tom Nichols and Shannon Parker, CEO of the Brave Space Alliance, Paul Rosenzweig, founder of the Homeland Security consulting company Red Branch Consulting, PLLC, and a senior advisor to the Chertoff Group, and Karen Holt, professor of political science at Virginia Tech, live, local, and progressive. Joan Esposito, 2 to 5 p.m. here on WCPT 820. And then tonight, 5 to 7, Chicago comedians Dwayne Kennedy and Adam Burke will be in for Patty. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weeknights 5 to 7 here on WCPT. Tomorrow, I will be, of course, talking with our good friend Karen Byrne of True Blue Politics podcast and Creek Stewart, survival expert, author of the Disaster Survival 101 book, which I have my own little copy, so I'm happy about that. And then I'll be at the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts in Skokie this Saturday, February 1st at 7 p.m. Joan Esposito and I will be seated at the table and standing and talking to folks, greeting folks before the 7:30 performance by the Capitol Fools, Washington, D.C.'s premier political satire group. Joan will also be introducing the show, and yes, there are tickets still available. Go to northshorecenter.org today. And as I said, the featured interviews podcast you can find in my recent conversations with investigative journalist Greg Pallas, Mayor Brandon Johnson, Illinois State Rep Will Guzzardi, immigration attorney Kate Lincoln Finch, Ben Jealous, John Fugelsang, Dana Goldberg, and more. The full episodes and the featured interviews are both on Spotify, Apple Podcast, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon. Just search for Choose Views or get the links on my show page by visiting heartlandsignal.com and clicking on my picture. It won't explode. Listening live, listen weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. On any of our shows and our broadcast. Joan, of course, during that time slot. And on TuneIn from heartlandsignal.com, or tell Alexa, play WCPT from TuneIn. That's how you do it. Play WCPT from TuneIn. Don't say, hey, Alexa. I know I said it before. And if you haven't already, you can follow Heartland Signal on X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Heartland Signal, one word. Be sure to check out heartlandsignal.com for daily updates. Make your way over there, boys and girls. Henry. We've got some really good clips that we put together that we'll get to probably after the 6:30 break. But But I want to take a little bit of time this morning to talk about yesterday's recommendation and ask of you guys. And then we'll hit a quick bit of Choose Views news. I want to talk about that today in terms of what we asked you to do and what we recommended, or what I asked you to do and recommended yesterday. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But let's take a quick little spin over to Choose Views news, bring you guys up to speed on some things that are happening. The government gets its own ChatGPT following the launch of several national security-focused large language models in recent months. OpenAI this week rolled out an artificial intelligence service tailored specifically for U.S. government agencies. A new platform, ChatGPT Gov, lets users upload non-public sensitive information to OpenAI's models while retaining existing security and privacy measures within the government's networks. The company says ChatGPT Gov includes many of the same features as ChatGPT Enterprise, but also allows agencies to use their own cloud servers. Google workers want job security, and as all folks should want and strive for. In a preemptive move, Google employees are pushing for greater job security ahead of anticipated cuts. More than 1,250 workers have signed an internal petition, according to CNBC, calling on Google CEO Sundar Pichai to offer buyouts before eliminating jobs, guarantee severance, and refrain from using negative performance reviews to justify cuts. The petition also follows statements by the company's CFO about further cost-cutting and rounds of layoffs since 2023. X and Visa, and this is something to pay attention to, X and Visa to take on Zelle Venmo. The social media platform, formerly known as Twitter, may be one step closer to becoming the, quote, everything app that Elon Musk has envisioned. CEO Linda Yaccarino said this week that the company is partnering with Visa to launch X Money, a service which allows users to make an instant peer-to-peer payments a la Venmo and Zelle, as well as transfer and in-store funds. The feature will launch in the first quarter of this year, according to a source at CNBC. So pay attention to that, guys, for all the obvious reasons. Boeing sees progress in recovery. Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg says the company's recovery is moving forward after a year of significant turmoil. After warning of disappointing fourth quarter results last week, the company duly reported an operating loss of nearly $4 billion that was driven by a machinist strike, production delays, and charges in its defense and commercial units. All right, CVS is tackling customer frustrations. How are they doing that? They've updated one of their apps, making it easier for customers to view prescription costs and pay for medication, and in a pilot program, unlock cabinets with their phones. As you've gone into a CVS, you know what I'm talking about. The company is hoping that by creating a less frustrating shopping experience, it can turn the corner on recent sluggish growth. There's a ceiling to the app's impact, however, as even the best design features won't eliminate staffing shortages or revive foot traffic. That's a service issue, guys. And also many people are buying a lot of their pharmaceutical items, related items, online. That's just the nature of, unfortunately, where we are in that space. All right, energy giants ally on data centers. What does that mean? Chevron, GE, Vernova, and investment firm Engine One are teaming up to power data centers for artificial intelligence. The plan moves building natural gas-powered plants that use GE Vernova turbines to generate 4 gigawatts of electricity, enough to sustain 3 million homes. For data centers by the close of 2027, this is taking place. The announcement comes in the immediate wake of deep tech and energy stock losses, including GE Vernova's plunge following DeepSeek's disruption of AI. So today, a little bit of talk about what's happening in the AI space and what I would recommend for anybody and everybody, irrespective of age, is, and I saw this, it was actually sent to me by a friend of mine that's a little bit of a techie. He said, don't be afraid of AI. not to necessarily feel like you have to embrace it, but every now and again, just do some Googling of how you can learn a little bit more about AI. And I think that's we were talking yesterday about libraries and the day before about the importance of libraries and going and getting books and information. And I was talking with I'll get to that in a second, but the friend of mine said, don't be afraid of AI. Find ways to learn more about it and see where it may be something that can be a tool in your life rather than running from it. And I have to be, one of those same folks to say, yeah, I'm building that into my repertoire of things that I do. Certainly in preparing for the show, there's some things that I look at. So that's why I wanted to kind of focus on a few of those items in the Choose Views news this morning. So here's where we'll make this little pivot. We'll take a break. When we make this pivot, when we come back, we're going to talk about this unfortunate, sad things that have just happened, and then we're going to rewind a little bit to yesterday and what I asked you guys to do. So the number, of course, is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-445-6363. That's 1-800-445-6363. Or go to SelectQuote.com. 1-800-445-6363. That's 1-800-445-6363.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose View with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose View, 773-763-9278. So yesterday I started off the show in the first half hour talking about the awfulness of the cuts and the freezes and so forth that 34 times convicted felon decided to, push through with an executive order. Of course, since then, judges have blocked the spending freeze and, the White House has sort of backed away from that. Okay, so here's twice in a week, Henry, that they threw out some garbage that's harmful to people and harmful to history, and then they backed away. One of them was last week, and I have a clip that we'll hopefully get to play today that's everlasting. And that clip and that item last week was to eliminate the teachings and the discussion of the history of the Tuskegee Airmen and women Air Force fighters. Not saying it the right way, but try to give the right denotation to women in the Air Force. So basically, let's not talk about women that have fought. Let's not talk about the Tuskegee Airmen. That fell apart. Okay? And they backed away from that. The spending freeze, that fell apart. In part, that fell apart. Judges got involved, etc. So where am I going with this? I had a dinner with a great friend of mine and my wife's last night. Hey, Christina. And I had a number of people send me text messages yesterday and emails that said, Richard, here's where you called. Here's the phone number. Here's the email address. This is what I did. And some people laughingly, kind of said in their own self-deprecating way, I don't know if it didn't really had any impact with me calling my congressman or my senator or even some state reps or my governor's office. But wow, they kind of backed away, and they're reversing this, or they're pausing it, and judges have gotten involved. Okay. So here's what I want to say about that. Remember when I said, y'all, we have not lost our power? Not one bit, frankly, because it starts with you, starts with us. This is what I meant. Partly what I meant. Last week, folks were in a major uproar about Tuskegee and women in the Air Force. And they backed away. This week, spending freeze. Folks got way upset and they backed away. So, what I want you guys to, how I want you to position this in your minds when it comes to anything on any level, whether it be here locally with Mayor Brandon Johnson. We're going to be talking with Cook County Commissioner President Toni Preckwinkle, Governor Pritzker, and any place you are in the country, whether it be your mayor, your township supervisor, your governor. Your power is only your power doesn't get taken away from you. You cede your power by saying I can't do anything, or what does it matter, or my vote doesn't matter. You cede it by not taking action. They don't take it away from you. They take it away from you, you get put in prison and then you lose certain rights. But on a day-to-day basis, nah, they ain't taking anything away from Henry. Henry has to cede his power. He has to cede his voice. And not unlike the video that I played last week, the clip last week of the professor who went after a student and the other students didn't say anything and they didn't use their voice. This is what I'm talking about. We made a decision last week and this week, Tuskegee and women in the Air Force and the spending freeze, to say, no, that's just unacceptable. So whether you as an individual think that you're called to your congressman or woman or your senator or any of your elected officials or companies doesn't have an impact, I think it did. I think if nothing else, Henry, I think the conversation about folks being ticked off, about taking away something that actually happened in our military history, black, white, whatever, to take that away frustrated and PO'd a lot of people. And many of those people weren't just black folks or women, because that's part of who we are as a country. And they want to take that away. The spending freeze immediately impacted little children in suburban communities and rural communities. Immediately. There was no color or culture or economics, any of those isms to that. It immediately negatively impacted folks. And what did folks do? One by one, people called, left messages, sent emails, probably some text messages, and all the other things to say, hey, wait a minute, player, you can't do that. So for me, what that says and what that does is it goes back to, you may feel like you've just got one voice, your voice, but you would be better off yelling and screaming and doing something about the issue than sitting back and going, well, my vote doesn't count. My voice doesn't count. My email doesn't count. My text message doesn't count. Masses of behinds decided to speak up and do something. We used to use a phrase. I won't necessarily go there this morning, but we used to use a phrase that you put enough mass behind something, it's going to move. My father used to say to me, Richard, if you drip water on something long enough, it's going to melt away. So he was talking about persistence. He was talking about vision. He was talking about leaning in. Those aren't words that he used. He gave me a visual. And he actually literally said, if you drip water on a rock long enough, that rock will melt away. That's literally what he said. So let me Pop, don't be turning over in your grave going, Richard, get it right. Say it right if you're going to say it. But anyhow, you guys can know where I'm going. It's the collective energy. This is why I keep saying, y'all, we cannot allow this punk and his other punks to tell us that we don't have a voice. So, when I called for impeachment yesterday, I meant it. I still mean it, because he lied, just like Governor Pritzker and Governor Walz said. He lied. And he's causing destruction and harm to citizens of the United States, and that's not what he swore to do. Somebody's going to call him on, you swore to do X, Y, and Z. And y'all mark my words on this. Tag this day and this time. 6:24 Central Time on January 30th, 2025. Richard Chu said that at some point somebody's going to ask him the question about why he swore to do X, Y, and Z. And he didn't, and you haven't done that, or you did the opposite. And at some point, mark my word, he's going to have some reference to his hand not being on the Bible. Follow that. Put a check mark by me saying that. It's going to come up. It will. You watch. I don't want it to, but it will. Actually, I do want it to. Let me back up on that, Henry. I do want it to come up. I do want it to be a conversation, because then all those folks who are on the religious Christian nationalist right will have a whole bunch of sour eggs on their face. That being said, our collective voice told them, no, you can't do that. And that's important for everybody to realize when it comes to you feeling like your voice may not have mattered or doesn't matter. The collective power does. It always matters. And you may, again, 78 million versus 75 million, or whatever the narrow margin of all of us. Let's forget about the Electoral College. That's antiquated post-enslavement, or a way to keep things in check and give people in states that don't have population as much power as other parts. We know what it is, and we're going to talk about that. I'm working on some stuff with that right now. But to stay on point, the nation was very, very narrowly close in this election. And that's why I keep reminding everybody, and others have said the same thing, that this is, we have a lot more fight and a lot more say in this than they may want to try to give us credit for. There is no mandate. Let me give you an example right now why there's no mandate. If there were a mandate, Henry, then guess what? There would not have been, they would have not walked away or walked back from Tuskegee. They were a mandate. They would have said, screw you guys. This is what we're going to do. They wouldn't have walked back from the spending freeze if there were a mandate, a true mandate, if y'all know what a mandate truly is. Okay? So, before we go to the break, I'm going to give you guys what our new label is, what our new title is, what our new visual is who we are. Excuse me. The folks on the right may think they have, they're dominating us because they may think that they're the lions, they're the kings of the jungle. But I'm going to take on a different animal that we are and we have to be. And I'll give you a little visual on this. We are the new rhinos, rhinoceroses. We are the rhinos, y'all. Across this country, wherever you're listening and following, we need to take on the role, the image, the power of rhinoceroses. The lions may have been given the label as the king of the jungle, but we are the rhinos. So let me give you a quick visual. You take the biggest, baddest, largest mane lion in the jungle, and you take the biggest, baddest, largest rhinoceros in the jungle. Both of those are two bad characters. They'll mess you up, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Lion will mess you up, but so will a rhino. And I dare any lion to put itself in reach face to face with a rhino's horn. And all you got to do is pull up some videos on YouTube and you see what I'm talking about. So from this day forward, y'all, I want you to visualize and picture yourself politically, socially, economically, and all the rest in this fight as a rhinoceros. And watch what a rhinoceros can do one-on-one, or a herd of them to a pack of lions. Okay? Watch that. That's who we are now as progressive liberal Democrats. When we come back, I've got a couple clips we're going to play to speak to that. But we are now, according to Richard Chew, you can wear this cape if you want, we are the new rhinos. Okay? That's the visual. We are not any other animal in the kingdom. We are the new rhinoceroses. Picture that, because that's how we're going to fight. We're going to fight like rhinos. All right, guys, let's take a quick break. Number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. A couple of quick texts this morning. I appreciate it. One of them is, Henry, I don't think the Constitution actually requires a Bible be part of the oath of office. They could put their hand on the Constitution. Ironically, the back and forth there. The point I'm making about that with regard to Trump, and you swore to defend the country, he raised his hand. And even though he didn't put his hand on the Bible, and it was right there, the point I'm making has to do more with the Christian right and their belief that he is their godsend. And that if he were, then why didn't he put his hand on the Bible? That's the conversation I'm talking about. So I get it. You're right. You're literally correct. And I'm saying that we, in terms of holding his feet to the fire, you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, what you're talking about. So why did I say rhinos versus lions? Because that's who we are now. We're no longer, some other animal in the kingdom. We are rhinoceroses, and we have the energy, the fire, the protection. Rhinos have very tough skin. They really do. And that's who we have to be right now. And I'm encouraging our elected officials to be that way as well. This soft language with the right ain't going to work. Knocking over some tables, bringing bills forward every day that force the Republicans to have to vote up or down, but keeping on record what they do or don't do and how those things harm the American people. That's what we have to do, and that's what we have to encourage. So where I'm going with this is, not only do we want to call them about things that happen from an executive order standpoint and let them know that that's unacceptable and people are being harmed, we also want to use that same power with our own folks in our own party, our own elected officials. We want to send that energy toward the folks that we elect. From Tammy Duckworth to, I'm just drawing names that pop into my brain, to Jamie Raskin, to Adam, Schiff, to Brian Schatz, to, Tammy Baldwin, on and on. We need to use the same energy to reach out to our own elected officials to encourage them to stand in the void. And if it means saying to them, listen, y'all need to bring a bill every single day that's about the benefit of the country, then let's do that. And at the same time, what I said 2 weeks ago about press conferences, they need to have a press conference at a minimum every Friday and Monday. Here's what we worked on this week. Here's why we worked on it. And here's who it's going to benefit. And then on Monday, talk about what the Republicans are doing to block things that we're trying to put together for the American people. That's what rhinoceroses do. They knock at that door to let them know you're there. That's what we have to do, guys. I'm just telling you, the more we do that, the more they're going to know that we are not here to play around. Now, a little bit of a pivot. I want to talk about this before we go to the break, because we want to hit some things before we have Ms. Preckwinkle on at 7 and Ms. Hernandez on at 7:30. Listen, guys, we always turn thoughts and prayers when there's a tragedy and when folks die, or when there's an event that happens. And so we, in this particular space, we are now hearing last night that there was a flight, an accident in and around the D.C. metropolitan area near the D.C. Reagan Airport. Aircraft and a plane and a helicopter. collided. So the thing that I'm not going to do is take the low-hanging fruit and just say this is Trump's fault. That's kind of a weak way to position this, because we don't know. He wasn't flying either of those aircraft. We do know. This is what I do want to talk about, and this is for those of you who are the MAGA that listen to this show and other shows like this, and the people who didn't vote. This message is for you. We don't, I'm not going to blame Donald Trump for this. He fired a number of people. He did all these things to affect negatively the staffing of the FAA, which frankly was a little bit understaffed in the beginning or before he took office. But he made that number increase in terms of the lack of staffing that they need. So if you hear some garbage that this is DEI, first of all, there's some great pilots that are of color, that are black and of color, and that are women. And there's a reason that I wanted to tie this to my point about Tuskegee and women in the Air Force. There's some great pilots that are not straight white Christian men. And if we want to have that conversation, there's been more planes that have gone down that were flown by straight white Christian men than there were by black men, women, other people of color, and white women for that matter. So if we don't have that conversation, MAGA, bring it on. That being said, we don't want to take a sad situation to make it disrespectful. What I want everybody to focus on is not that, you could take the low-hanging fruit about this. What I want you to focus on is bad policy, bad decisions, and how they will impact you MAGA folks, you non-voters, as much as it's going to impact anybody else. Okay? That is the point I want to be taken from this, is that it's bad policy can have ripple effects on all of us. So I'm here to say that people on those, the folks that were lost on those, in these two different aircraft, the odds are they are left, right, and in the middle politically, and of different communities, more than likely, just based on, who's on the airplanes today. So it's not a political issue when folks die. But if there's policy that impacts the thing that happened to cause loss of life, then you have to look at this and say, wait a minute. How many more things from a policy standpoint or an executive order standpoint are we going to tolerate, or are we going to be rhinoceroses and say, no, hell no, we're not going to allow that to happen? So that's why I don't want to take the low-hanging fruit. I want us to look broader than that and say policy-wise, executive order-wise, what else are we putting ourselves at risk of when it comes to this conversation? And rhinoceroses don't take the low-hanging fruit. They go after the whole tree. So we have to go after the whole tree here, guys. Okay? I hope you get my point. We'll probably come back to it. But let's take a couple of quick calls, Henry. I think that's our good friend Karen Byrne holding on the line. Good morning, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Yes, I felt my skin sickening yesterday as we were watching the results of the pressure campaign that we all put on our elected officials and social media as well. I will say this is what they do not understand. And I think that we're getting a little bit of a wake-up call. The people that maybe weren't paying attention are starting to maybe pay attention to the fact that we have criminally corrupted men who have money and power. We've got billionaires sitting in our White House making, very much influencing policy. It's not just like they're going to lobby anybody, right? They're sitting right in the seat of government, influencing and impacting the decisions that the most powerful person in the world, and I use that very loosely right now because it makes me, but you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right. So here's the thing that they do not understand, too. We are a multicultural, multiracial, population out here, and we want to hold on to our democracy. They cannot take us back. It's too late. They're not going to take us back. And the only way that they win is if we do not join together, if we do not understand that we cannot be fighting each other. We cannot be, it's like I understand, the urge to say, like, hey, they did this, voted this way, they didn't vote, whatever. And I am right in that camp because I'm angry. I'm angry, just as I was angry at the people in 2016 who didn't understand the extreme threat that Donald Trump posed to our country as far as who we had sitting on the Supreme Court. I'm angry and I'm frustrated and everything, but we have got to understand something, and that they don't want us to ever realize and act on. We hold the power. We all together, and we don't need to let them take us back. And as far as the Democratic leadership, I don't think it should be once a week. I think it needs to be every single day, because every single day Donald Trump and Elon Musk are going to do something to hurt the American people, to hurt all of us. So they need to be out there. We need to be able to slow it down just enough to get to the midterms. And I feel like we can really turn the ship around.
Well,
we cannot be fighting each other.
No, we can't. And Karen, to your point, to slow it down, and to some extent stop it. Like the Tuskegee
yes.
and freeze the budgeting freeze. Those have been stopped essentially, or they've been slowed down greatly. I mean,
yes.
you may have seen that another judge is preparing to block, and I'll read this while you're on the phone, to block Trump's spending freeze. Despite the White House's attempt to clean up the issue, U.S. District Judge Jack McConnell said in a bid by the White House to rescind a hugely ambiguous order implementing the freeze appeared to be undercut by that knucklehead Caroline Leavitt. I'm inclined, quote, to grant a restraining order. Okay, I fear that the administration is acting with a distinction without a difference. That's exactly what should be done by the judges, because their power is what they're empowered to do. Oftentimes people think that they are only there to sort of adjudicate or play referee. Judges are not. That's not their only capability. It's sometimes to prevent things. They are judging decisions. And they use evidence to determine what their ruling will be. More judges can step up. See, this is okay. We're gonna say this about 2016. This is the other part of 2016 that hurt us, is losing the capacities for some of the federal judges that Trump got to appoint in his first 4 years. But here we are.
Yep.
I agree with what you said. I want to stay on point with what you were saying, and that is that we have the ability to slow a lot of this down, and we definitely have the ability to stop a lot of it by simply coming together and working together and not fighting against each other, and saying that not having to be 100% the rightest person in the room, but being willing to say, if enough of us come together with our energy, we're now a pack of rhinos. And,
right.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I do think a lot of people, there was a lot of social media out there with a lot of Trump voters, a lot of, you've been covering some of these stories too, that are finding out what this means.
Yeah.
They're starting to understand. So, I mean, there is an opportunity here. I'm not saying like we need to, be singing Kumbaya, but I mean, we do need to be, understand. And let me just say this, I'm a little bit less inclined to like Trump voters, but the people that didn't vote, it's like, this is an opportunity to really bring these guys in, and because they are finding out what their no vote, did and can do. So, and to the all of the government workers that received those letters saying that they're, being offered the buyouts, to step down and, resign. Do not.
No.
Do not. They have power here. They do not have to. These IGs, they do not. It is illegal. And I think the last time we all learned how much of our system of government is held together by rules and norms. I think now we're going to start seeing how much of it is held together by laws.
Yep, exactly.
And the Constitution.
And
and when Donald Trump doesn't put his hand on the Bible, yes, you are 100% correct. He also did not put it on the Constitution.
Right, and that's...
Okay, and if you go...
No, I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, really quick. And then if you go to whitehouse.gov and if you search the Constitution, it brings you to his executive orders.
Yep.
So that tells us everything that we need to know. And that is some of the conversation that you can bring to people that checked out, that even, that you are still speaking to that voted for him. Bring that and ask them about that, how they feel about that. Because this is who this man is. This is who these people are. They want to take over our democracy.
That's why it's important for those of us that can inform to keep informing and letting people know. No, you got hoodwinked, but you can come back from that if you're willing to do the work, and if you're willing to be the ones that say, that's not what I want, that's not what I need, and I need to change, and the change starts right now. So, Karen, thank you so much for the call. We gotta hit a quick break and keep things moving forward. But thanks for the contribution. We will talk soon. Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
You have a good day.
You too. All right. Bye now. All right, Henry, let's take a quick break, grab a call, and we come back. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
WCPT replay.
Where is our resolve to fight rather than enable fascists? What happened to our principles, our commitment to democracy? Now, this isn't how Democrats used to do this. LBJ ate the Republicans' lunch. Franklin Roosevelt, he called them and the people who backed them economic royalists. He said, these economic royalists complain that we seek to overthrow the institutions of America. What they really complain about is that we seek to take away their power. And our allegiance to American institutions requires the overthrow of this kind of power. Republicans called FDR a tyrant and a communist, and he laughed at them. They said he'd destroy America. He steamrolled them. Where is this generation's FDR? Where are the Democratic Party's heroes? Where are our spokespeople? Where is their outrage?
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Let's go to George real quickly in Oak Park, Illinois. Hey, George, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. So I'll listen to WLS AM 870 on the dial for their take on the news. Like stuttering Chris Plant. He was saying yesterday how that Congresswoman from Florida, Luna, was initiating legislation for this country to build a stone memorial similar to Mount Rushmore for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that, plus, he also said that, Chris Plant said also that Jefferson Davis was a Democrat, associating the Democrats of those days, the Civil War, the Confederacy, the rebels, with Democrats of today. But he never says that, those Democrats are now Republicans after Nixon had his Southern strategy. Then I'm listening to Dan Bongino. And so his take on that freeze of funding was this, that, no, this was not a permanent freeze. This was just a temporary freeze because, as Dan Bongino says, something to the effect that the Trump administration was just trying to filter out the Biden administration's pork out of the money that was, ready to be spent. That's what he said.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. So he's trying to cover it up. He's trying to put the blame on Joe Biden's, money for that. Well, you know what? They could have done that. behind the scenes, double check all their funding.
Yeah, they didn't have to. Freezing it wasn't. This is, again, let's just say for a second, and you were the congresswoman you're talking about is Anna Paulina Luna, and I would add tick to the last part of her name. Just anyhow, we'll move on. Listen, George, what they could have done if they knew what the hell they were doing in terms of truly being legislatively smart and executive order smart, they could have, behind the scenes, to your point, said these are items that we think are fat in this legislation or in this policy or in this bill, and done it behind the scenes. If there were fat that they felt needed to come out, taking the fat out and kept things moving along. They didn't have to freeze things to take the fat out. That was utterly stupid because it impacted millions of people in an instant. So if they weren't, so again, to your point, George, these guys, some of these guys, and listen, I'll go toe to toe with them any day of the week, 24/7. Because they get away with saying things without being challenged. I love being challenged because I'm ready for the fight. So these guys that are running their mouths on the other shows and other stations that are right wing and right wing esque or adjacent, I welcome the debate. However, what you're saying, which is so important, it shows that their ignorance or stupidity or lack of care or give a darn is ever present because. They could have, if there were truly fat in there, they could have fixed it behind the scenes, fixed the problem, kept the funding going, not injured or caused harm or stress and strife to American citizens. But they chose to go in a different direction because they wanted to be the big men in the room and say we're going to shut it down. No, they were lying all along.
Sure. And then they're trying to cover it up. And one more thing, Richard, about the right-wing constituency. And I've done this myself. They're going to suffer the effects like everyone else is. They're not going to be filtered out of the BS that's coming out of the administration, like what the Democrats are going to be suffering. You'll hear them say, or a lot of people on left-wing radio will say this about the constituency for the Trump, that they say that Trump said it, but I didn't really believe it that it was going to happen, or that I didn't think that what Trump said that things are going to be bad for the left wing, that it's also going to be affecting myself. So then yesterday during Don Gino's show, a woman calls in from Indiana, and she says, Dan, that now I feel safe and I feel happy. Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Well, really? That's how they feel about it. If they're still glowing in the dark over Trump's win, I would just say to them, to the right-wing constituency, go suck eggs. Just go. And you know what? Don't think about them anymore. I'm not. Let them dry up and blow away in the dust, dust into the wind.
That's
really. Right. Our concern should be us.
Our concern,
your audience, the Democratic Party. That's what the concern is, not them.
Good point, George. Listen, man, take a deep breath. Go out and get some fresh air because I know you're on fire this morning. But we appreciate your contribution, George, and always we're good to hear your voice. Be safe, okay?
Love you. Love your show.
Thanks, man. Be well. Yeah, George needs to go get a breath of fresh air, Henry, because he's ready to. But you know what? Listen, I applaud that. I would rather there'd be 1,000, 1,000,000 Georges that are making it plain and ready to fight and ready to put on his rhinoceros gear than not. You know what I mean? And that's the fight that we have to have. Speaking of that, I really want to get this clip in. The one from Senator Brian Schatz. We have that one available? Or we do. Let's hit them with that before we go to break.
I guess it wasn't about the price of eggs after all. Anyone who's been involved in planning a wedding understands that seating arrangements are important. They are significant. They are embedded with meaning. And where you put people on the inaugural stage is a strict definition of where you think they rank. And so it wasn't a trivial thing that the wealthiest people to ever walk this planet, who control our communications platforms, were seated in front of the cabinet itself, which, by the way, has a few billionaires and 100 millionaires, but not as wealthy as the people in front, with proximity to power. And that's the point we have to underscore today, which is it was never about reducing the price you pay at the pump. It was never about reducing the price you pay for your mortgage or your rent or your insurance or your grocery bills. It was always about cutting Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, Social Security, public education, in order to pay for the largest tax cut in human history. That's what this is. They are ripping you off.
Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii. What I want y'all to do is get in this man's corner. He is not afraid to speak truth to power. I've followed him for a while, and every time something comes up, and listen, he's one that will, when the Democrats aren't acting right, he will say what he's got to say about that too. So that's why a little bit of my litmus test. Not that it's about me, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii is someone that you need to follow. Give him a phone call every now and again and say, hang in there, Senator, we got you. Let him know, because he speaks truth to power. And that's what the Democratic Party has to do right now. Up and down in all offices, they have to speak truth to power to the people that are trying to cause harm to citizens of the United States of America. So that's somebody that you want to get behind. We've got another clip that we aren't going to be able to get to right now because we have to take a break, and I want to get to that with all due respect with our guests at 7 and 7:30. So, Henry, let's take a quick break, my man, and be ready to come back strong. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. 773-763-9278. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. All I will tell you, because we're busy this morning, is we have some great articles over there. We have some great commentary. And, of course, Heartland Signal on X. We've got some great video and clips for you guys to check out. So make your way over there today and pass it on to the people that you care about. All right, this morning we have such a wonderful opportunity, such a wonderful guest and leader here in the state of Illinois, the region, the country, frankly, with us this morning. And that is President of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, Toni Preckwinkle. Good morning, Ms. Preckwinkle. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you.
Always good to hear your voice. I'm going to get right to something that I want to thank you for right out of the gate. And during COVID, I made this comment on another show that I'm part of, The Family Meeting, that because of the fact that we had great local leadership between our mayor, you as a Cook County president, and our governor, we as a state and a region were able to lead and go forward and do a great job of taking care of citizens. And I want to tip my hat to you for that, because you were a great part of the coordination of all the effort and the benefits and the support that the area benefited from. So that's my first tip of the hat to you this morning. The second one is how great you and the mayor and the governor were able to, along with the other county commissioners, to put together a great Democratic National Convention. It was the talk of the town. It was the talk of the world, frankly. So I really appreciate that. And thirdly, just in general, your leadership in the area. And I'm just proud to have you on the show this morning. But I wanted to tip my hat to you first, to say that to you directly about the things that you've been right at the tip of the spear to make sure it gets done here in Chicago, the Cook County, the county, and of course the state. So thank you, Ms. Preckwinkle.
Well, listen, I'm very grateful for your kind words. Let me begin by talking about those things. First of all, the pandemic. I want to acknowledge the help and support that we got from Governor Pritzker. You may know that we ran half a dozen mass vaccination sites. Our health and hospital system, in conjunction with our real estate folks and the Bureau of Asset Management, put together sites at what were vacant big box stores.
Yep.
And we couldn't have done that with our own resources. We got help from the governor and the National Guard and supplementary health staff that the state paid for as well. So we were able to, I think, the health and hospital system got 1 million vaccines in people's arms, and our local partners at federally qualified health centers did another 1 million. So we were responsible for about 2 million vaccines in people's arms, and that made a big difference in terms of the outcomes for people who were exposed to the disease or got the disease.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I have to acknowledge, you talked about it as a partnership. I agree it was a partnership, but we were really relying on the state support that we got and couldn't have done it without it. So that's one thing. The convention. I just want to congratulate Christy George. She was our local person in charge of the convention. And I think she did a great job. As you may know, she's a young African-American woman, and it's flawless, I guess. We had perfect weather. The convention ran smoothly.
Didn't we have great weather?
Yeah, I mean, the city showed well, and frankly, I've been to a number of conventions. This was my favorite, not just because it was hometown, but because it was in the city, which is so beautiful. Because of the speeches, I mean, if you think of Michelle Obama's address and Oprah, and I'm talking about the women, of course, and of course our candidate, who really showed herself to be a reasonable, responsible leader, and I thought she was a great candidate. And I know there's a lot of kind of back and forth now about what happened in this election, but given the time that she had to introduce herself to the American people and to persuade them that she could be an effective leader, I think she did a great job.
She did. And to that point, even with the time, by contrast, we had contrast of something other than that for a long time for people to be able to make a more rational and intelligent decision. Vice President Harris didn't need 307 days. She needed 1 day to show the country that versus me is they're miles apart. So, kudos though, again, to what you just said about how the leadership and the partnership came together. Do our listeners a tiny favor. A lot of folks, they see your name, they hear your name, they know who this person is, but just take a moment and just give your own quick history lesson, because I want people to know kind of your background and what you've done to get to where you are, and then sustain yourself in that role. We got some issues to talk about, but I really want people to know a little bit about your history and your background.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a history teacher. I spent the first 10 years of my working life teaching high school history, and I loved it. I knocked around a little bit at various not-for-profits. I worked for the city of Chicago. I was head of the Chicago Jobs Council, executive director of the Chicago Jobs Council, which is an organization that focuses on employment issues and supporting those that provide employment training services, advocating for them. And then in 1991, I was elected on my third try as alderman of the 4th Ward, where I served for almost 20 years. And I was elected to this office in November of 2010. So I've been in public life for more than 30 years, and it's been a privilege and an honor.
When I hear people say, folks that have been involved in politics for a long time, what that actually the upside of that is someone that has your sort of background. I mean, you fought through. Third time's a charm. You kept fighting, and showing that your history was a benefit rather than not to your ability to get to where you are now and be such an impactful leader to the second largest county in America. People don't know that. I do, but I talk about it a lot. And so you're responsible for a lot of stuff and a lot of people, a lot of resources. And I want to get your take, obviously, on the elephant in the room in terms of these executive orders. and what the county's response is and how you're trying to create that firewall of protection for citizens of the county.
Well, this has been a pretty chaotic couple weeks. I think we'd all agree. President Trump has issued a number of executive orders and directives that, of course, have created that chaos. I think the most telling in terms of how he's going to proceed and the confusion and chaos that he's going to create is the memo that temporarily halted payment on all federal assistance programs. And although it's been rescinded, it would have stopped programs that provided food assistance, access to health care, affordable housing. It's hard to know who suggested that this might be a good idea, but it surely caused a lot of consternation and anxiety and fear among our seniors and our families. It's incomprehensible to me, but I think it's indicative of what we're going to see in the future. These not very well thought out at best executive orders and directives, and then either withdrawal of them or good folks will file suits to try to prevent them from being implemented. So we're in for a pretty bumpy ride here, in my opinion.
So you, the governor, Mayor Brandon Johnson, all the folks that are you three are the top three leaders, and I would add to that list Attorney General Kwame Raoul in terms of sort of the 4, 5, 6 top voices when it comes to making sure that our city, our county, our state is going to be able to have a less bumpy ride. I have to believe that you guys are working in coordination and in partnership to share resources and share information about how do we navigate that, as well as the immigration items that are coming our way.
Yeah, the chiefs of staff have been meeting to be sure that our efforts are coordinated, and in our case, we run a health system, and we want to be sure that people who come to our health system do not fear for their safety. So the health and hospital system has implemented a number of protocols to ensure that should representatives of Immigration and Customs Enforcement come to our healthcare facilities or our hospitals, they are not allowed to snatch people up. You should understand that presently that President Trump has said that in contrast to previous practice, that our ICE people can go to hospitals, to schools, to religious institutions, and extract people. So we're doing our best. What I said to my staff was, we have to think of ourselves as part of the resistance, and in every arena for which we're responsible, how can we protect the people that we serve?
That's fantastic to hear. I've always believed that we aren't going to agree. We're on the same team. We aren't going to agree on everything. Neither should we, because there's no growth if we only just agree on everything. But in this case, you guys are doing what I believe is a wonderful job of letting the city, the county, the state, the region, and frankly, the country know that Illinois will not be taken for granted. The bus will not be run over us. And it's great to hear that you and your staff are looking at it that way. I want to ask you a question about something that the White House press secretary said or intimated with regard to the reasons why the federal assistance pause was taking place. And I commented on this in an earlier segment, that it was because of the quote-unquote, and I'm paraphrasing, Ms. Preckwinkle, the fat that the Biden administration had in it. So to the extent that you know anything about that, I know it's not factual, but what are your observations in terms of the White House's response and then reneging or backing away, but blaming it on there being fat in the budget?
Well, I think whether we're talking about our household budget or the federal government's budget, there are probably opportunities to trim. But you don't do that with an axe. You do that with a scalpel. And you don't do it without any thought or preparation or consideration of possible consequences. So even if you believed that there was fat in the federal government, the idea that you can determine where that is and excise it in the course of a week and a half, in my view, is nonsense. And if you, your idea that you've got billions of dollars in federal expenditure, and the way in which to determine that which is fat is to just stop everything until you figure it out. No, I think that if you have good sense, you look carefully at the programs and services that you're delivering over time, and then figure out maybe what things are absolutely critical and what things we may have to no longer provide. But the idea that you can make those difficult determinations given the size of the federal government in 10 days boggles the mind.
So there's the thing that I made a note of when I'm listening to you this morning. I sense a certain amount of exasperation in your voice on a lot of these subjects, but I also hear the encouragement and the forward thinking that you've always brought to the table when it comes to solving problems. How are you articulating through that with your staff and other people that you have meetings with and encounters with right now?
One of the things we did before the president was inaugurated was ask our policy team to talk to all of our folks and try to anticipate some of the kinds of things that President Trump might do, and then what both our vulnerabilities are and what our response might be. So we prepared a document that outlined what our challenges were going to be, so that we frankly wouldn't be caught flat-footed when these initiatives maybe were announced or there was an effort to implement them. So that's the first thing: trying to be prepared by anticipating possible actions by the federal government, and then looking at that document and trying to figure out where our greatest vulnerabilities are. So we did work prior to the president's inauguration on the 20th to try to determine what the landscape was going to be after January 20th, and I'm very grateful to our policy team for that. And then, of course, we knew there were going to be difficulties around immigration, and we're part of the effort to try to provide as much information as we can to our immigrant communities. I want to congratulate the Illinois Council on Immigrant and Refugee Rights, ICER, which is doing a great job. It's a coalition of organizations that's doing a great job to get information out into our neighborhoods, to communities and to residents so that they know their rights should someone from ICE come to their door or their place of work. And frankly, we can't prevent the federal government from making these raids, but we can provide people with information so that they know what their rights are should they encounter ICE officials.
Developing policy, having conversations, and knowing what's coming, and then being able to have the proverbial umbrella ready with tools that support the people that need them. You are very strongly committed to environmental justice. Talk a little bit about that as it relates to the work that you're doing here in Cook County.
Before I do that, Richard, let me just there's one thing I forgot to mention, and I should take a moment to share this. With the support of our commissioners, I'm particularly grateful to Commissioners Anaya, Commissioner Quesada, Commissioner Aguilar. We have a unit within the Public Defender's Office that represents immigrants facing deportation. So not only are we working with advocates and community organizations around the county to get the word out about Know Your Rights, we're also doing our best to protect people who come into the criminal justice system as a result of their documentation status. So I want to thank the Public Defender's Office for that good work and acknowledge the support of our commissioners broadly and those three commissioners in particular for their support of that program. Environmental justice. The environmental movement has not always focused on justice. That is, the communities that have been disproportionately impacted by not just climate change, but, the location, for example, of waste facilities, or how close communities are to things like oil refracting facilities and so on, right? And the communities that are often closest to those, whether it's a landfill or a fracking plant for oil, are often low-income communities of color. So when we look at environmental issues, we also have to think of environmental justice. And while it's about clean air and safe drinking water and green spaces, it's also about trying to hold polluters accountable and invest in communities that historically have been marginalized. So it's and I think the environmental movement is, although it initially started out as a movement of pretty privileged white people, frankly, concerned about climate change and preserving the beauty of our great country, ordinary folks in communities of color have also taken up the environmental issue and focused on the justice aspect of environmental policy. So, I want to thank all the grassroots community folks who have done this work and put environmental justice on the table in our discussions about the environment. And I want to encourage people to attend. We've got a town hall meeting coming up on this coming Monday, February 3rd, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Malcolm X College, which is 1900 West Jackson Boulevard. And it's a chance to hear more about the environmental justice policy that we're developing and to share your thoughts and insights. So
will you be there? Not to put your business in the street, okay? Because I might try to make my way over there to that. That's a great event to be a part of. As we wrap up, a couple of final questions, and there's so much to talk about. I feel like I'm sitting in your your history class, and just taking notes because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much information. In the last 7-8 years, Chicago's been deemed by Condé Nast Magazine as one of the coolest places to be, safe, clean, all that. But we have to remember, that we have this great forest preserve system, which you are essentially, in charge of, and you and your other commissioners, to making our forest preserves wonderful. Talk about that a little bit as we kind of come to a close today.
Sure. Well, first of all, the Forest Preserve District is a separate governmental body, but it has the same officers and commissioners as the county itself. It's about $180 million a year in its budget. And it's responsible for almost 70,000 acres in Cook County, which is about 11% of our land area. So we are really blessed to have this natural resource within our bounds, and it's river systems, it's lakes, it's trails, we have campgrounds. We have 5 campgrounds around the county where you can tent, you can connect your RV, you can share a cabin with family and friends. We have nature centers. It is a blessing to all of us, and I just want to encourage people to get out, not just in the summer when the temperature is a little more amenable than the moment, but also in the winter. I mean, I go out for winter walks in the forest preserves. It's absolutely beautiful. And in the winter, there's a chance, if there is snow, for cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and sledding. But you can always go for a walk or ride your bike. If you're into cycling, or actually we allow horses in our forest preserves as well. So there are lots of opportunities to do fun stuff outdoors in our forest preserves during the winter, and I hope folks will take advantage. We have forest preserves all across the county.
Well, I so appreciate you being with us. I'm trying to just let folks know that we have such great leadership in our area, whether it be Mayor Johnson and his team and you and your team, the governor and his team, and the lieutenant governor, and we have a lot to be proud of for having folks like you, Ms. Preckwinkle, as one of the leaders in the area and one of the folks that help keep us moving forward. I greatly appreciate you being with us this morning, and I hope that maybe we can check in with each other once a quarter to have you come on and talk about what's happening in the area and the county, because what you do is so integral to the region. And I know people don't say that to you enough. I will say it. I'm one of your supporters. I believe in the work that you've done. And, you know, you used to be a history teacher. How could you not like a history teacher, Henry?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I am grateful for the encouragement that you've given me this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Preckwinkle. Maybe I'll see you on Monday at Malcolm X, but have a great rest of the week. Stay safe, and we appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, there it is. Link yourself up to a history teacher or a former history teacher. You might learn something. What an honor to have Ms. Toni Preckwinkle, who is the president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, running the second largest county in the nation. Y'all don't know that. If you didn't know that, I said it before, but I'm saying it again. She's phenomenal in what she does. And as I said, I say this because I want people to understand. I don't just say how much I respect and love some of the people that are our leaders just to say it. Their jobs are not easy. They're difficult, but they signed up for it. They know that. And folks that I talk to know that I'm going to say, hey, we want you to do better. Whether it be Mayor Johnson, other elected officials, Ms. Preckwinkle, Governor Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, because I want to encourage them to do better. I don't want them to fail. I want them to succeed. And so that is why I say the things that I do about them. And as I say oftentimes, they're not going to get along all the time. They're not going to see everything the same way. They're just not. Their histories don't allow it. None of us to be that way. But when it comes to the work that they do to protect us and provide us with the goods and services to make things better in our communities, these three, and, you know, there's, like I said, there's five of them. You know, it's her, it's Mayor Johnson, it's Governor Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, and A.G. Raoul. And there's others. I don't want to feel like I've left anybody out. They're not perfect, y'all. We don't need them to be perfect. We want them to be open to our suggestions and be willing to understand that folks have needs, and that if collectively we can build a team and an arsenal of folks that are encouraged to move us forward, then we win. We're the rhinos that I talked about earlier, and that she is one of them. And I'm proud to have had her on the show this morning and look forward to having her back. We will just kind of try to do like a quarterly check-in with Ms. Preckwinkle to see what's happening and what she's working on, because she's got a tough fight in front of her, and she and her Board of Commissioners do. There's no doubt about that. But I know that they're built for the fight. And I had a chance to talk to a couple during the convention, and couldn't you hear the pride in her voice when she talked about it? And I'm not going to say she got choked up, but she felt the energy. It's still with her. My wife Ann and I were driving through the McCormick Place area yesterday, and I just had a big grin on my face and saying I still get a little chill thinking about that convention. And that's what we have to remember, guys. It's crazy right now, like she said, bumpy ride ahead, but this is where we get to come together and say, hell no, we're going to fight. We are going to be rhinos. And don't blame it on Richard, because he said I'm a rhino now. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We want to try to keep on our timing today. So those of you that are on hold, stay with us. We'll get to your calls before the end of the show. The number is 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. We will get to your calls, guys, toward the end of the show. Just hang in there with us. What a great morning, Henry. We've got leaders, women leaders, y'all. Women leaders getting stuff done. President Preckwinkle, it was great to have her with us this morning. And we will stay right on that train of having our great women leaders here in Illinois. Representative Norma Hernandez with us this morning from the 77th District. Good morning, Ms. Hernandez. Welcome to Choose Views.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you with us. And, right before you, we had President Toni Preckwinkle on the show talking about the work that she's doing here in the county and, of course, the region. And you yourself have been a pretty big, activist and making things happen here in recent weeks and months. So kudos to you and congratulations to you for being named the chair of the Illinois House Latinx Caucus. Way to go, Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to not only, start a couple years ago, but, the responsibilities keep growing, but the impact also keeps growing too. So that's beautiful to witness.
Well, I mean, you're directly at the cause of that. I mean, tell our listeners and our followers a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are. I know the answer to that question, so I'd get an A and get to move to the front of the class. But I don't want to speak your story. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I was born and raised in the district that I represent now, Melrose Park. My family's been in this community for 3 generations now. And I, first went to go to college and, go through that, journey as a first-generation college student. I worked in the foster care system for a couple of years as a foster care case manager and really was all over the city and worked in the South Side, especially in the Inglewood community, and experienced community disinvestment differently, right, than me, from someone that comes from the suburbs, from Melrose Park. I ended up going back to school and got my master's in urban planning and public policy. And I was very fortunate to be mentored by Dr. Teresa Cordova from Great Cities Institute. And she hired me on full-time as an urban planner once I graduated. And that really created a lot of opportunities for me to understand policy, urban planning, and so many other things. I was able to write research reports and really get involved in a lot of academic studies throughout the city of Chicago and the region. And through that work, I got recruited to run for office. My first position that I got recruited for was for Triton Community College Board, where I was the first Latina elected on that board. It was a big race, about 25 suburbs, a very contentious race, and I ended up winning by about 169 out of almost 40,000 votes. So it was a very close election. And I think that was a moment where a lot of people never knew didn't really know me or what I've done. And they were getting to know me in this race during COVID, right? It was right after COVID. I believe it was 2021. And I won. So given that, many folks started reaching out to me and really wanted me to think about running for this position, which is a state rep position. And the irony, too, is that I actually was working on a research report where I was documenting the Latino growth in the western suburbs in the past 10 years with the new census data that had come out. So it was a very hard conversation, but I understood the needs of my community given all of the work that I had already been doing as an urban planner. So it was hard to say no after being recruited, right, by folks that believed in me more than I believed in myself. And ever since then, I won this election, and I've been able to really focus on the things that I know our community needed that hadn't been there before.
That's a great story. I got to ask you this question. Well, I'm going to make a statement and then ask a question. What you just said in terms of believing in you more than you may have believed in yourself is a perfect example of the fact that we all stand on each other's shoulders or someone else's shoulders that help prop us up to get to the next level. And so I'm sure you are fully aware of the power of that. And so now you're in this position where a few votes got you basically across the finish line. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about voting registration, voting. We had a gentleman on, Greg Palast, who's a documentarian and movie producer. He talked about voter suppression being active and alive in all parts of the country.
Right.
You know the importance of voting and the importance of voter registration, and that narrow margin shows that all votes do matter and all votes do count. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about that because, the fight right now is voter registration and voter suppression. And how are you, as now in this role, going to tackle that across all communities?
Yeah, and I think, to add to that, now with, we have all of these ICE raids, people are going to be opening their doors even less, right? Let's be real about the future of our elections and what door knocking does, right? That's usually door knocking is how you get to voters. But for me, I think the voter suppression and understanding about, why voting is so important, to me, that's why I believe community engagement is so important in anything that we do in terms of government. I myself have done a lot of community engagement research and worked with CPS schools in their civics department to enhance civics curriculum, because I do believe that it is about registering folks to vote. It is about getting folks to come out, but it goes deeper than that, right? We need to have a curriculum that is allowing us to understand how government works and why we need good government, right? And how we have the power to understand and control who gets elected, right? If we actually educate folks on the importance of this and get them to come out to vote. And I believe that now, especially here in the suburbs, there's not a lot of community engagement compared to the city. I've done a lot of work in the city, and we really need that community engagement here and in my community, which is why I really focus on that with all of the work that we do and all the events that we do. Because if you're not tapping into your community, then you're not building those relationships. They're not getting to know the work that you do, so they're not going to find a reason to want to come out to vote for you. They have to see you in the ground, right? They have to feel the work that you're doing and then also get educated on why your position is important.
Wow. A big high five to you on that. I said this to Mayor Johnson recently. You've got to let people know what you're doing, and daily people need to know where you are, what's going on, because if they don't know, they will fill in the blank with their own thoughts, and in many cases misinformation and disinformation. And I appreciate you having taking a version of that to apply to where you are. So a couple of quick questions surrounding that. What are some of the things that you're doing to get that awareness out there and keep it high for the people that are in your community, that are in your district, to know what Representative Norma Hernandez is doing, what she's about? What are some of the things that you're tangibly doing?
Yeah, so a few things that I'm doing. One of them is I've had a youth council now for 3 years, where young people come to my office. We meet every month. They're assigned to go to board meetings for me, whether it's school board meetings, municipal board meetings, library board meetings, park district board meetings, on my behalf as my student reps. Or student ambassadors is what I call them. And we meet, I educate them on the importance of why we have to stay engaged in these meetings. And we've been able to talk to over 100 students already with the 3 years that I've been here, from all over different high schools in my district. That's one way, right? Because you have to get to the young people that aren't even voters yet, because they'll talk to their friends, right? And that's the goal of us, like wanting to have young people in my office. The other component is actual outreach, right? Canvassing, flyering. My interns, I have a few interns that every week they're assigned to go flyering. Right now, with everything that's happening, even just today, we have people scheduled to go flyer business districts in my area. Both English and Spanish, right? Language access is a huge component as well. And the other thing is through social media, making sure that you have an active social media. And when I mean active, I don't just mean posting something, right? But sharing things on those community pages. You have always folks sharing stuff all across. The other part also is having events, right, that are targeting specific folks. We have a retreat in my office. We actually just finished it a couple weeks ago, where we're power mapping, right? We are looking at the areas with the most need that we haven't had an event in yet. We're identifying those areas and making sure that we're doing extra outreach in those specific areas, because we want to make sure that we're hitting all of our parts.
That's the outreach part. I love the student ambassadors. I hope I'm calling it the interns that are the ambassadors. I mean, that's so critically important, and it's important because the younger voter that may or may not feel that that they matter, not just their vote matters, but that they matter as a citizen of your district, of the state, of the larger U.S. population. We have to keep tapping into that. And I know that engagement is one of the key things. So kudos to you for having the vision and the insight. And I think some of that probably comes from your urban planning chops in terms of your educational background. Would I be fair in saying that?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've done participatory budgeting across Chicago for about 5 years. I did it with 8 aldermen. I did it with the city of Chicago during the COVID relief funds where we did community engagement on the budget. And then I did it with CPS schools and helped write a curriculum for them and how to do participatory budgeting with young people. And that's the thing, right, is participatory democracy. What does that mean? When you think about public dollars, community input is really important, right? You're giving people a say in how to spend money, real dollars. Participatory policymaking, right? You're giving people the opportunity to give you ideas for policies. But just getting folks involved in the process and understanding that they too have a say, I think is so critical. And that's why we ended up working with CPS, because we felt that if we can do this with actual curriculum in the schools and give young people money on how to spend to enhance their school community, that is already giving young people the opportunity to understand that they have a say. They get to vote on these projects, and then once they vote, change happens, right? You're creating those habits early on, so when they come out of school, they are understanding that and are naturally going to want to become voters.
Yeah, they want to become voters. They want to become participants. They want to bring more of their colleagues and cohorts into the mix. And I'm so proud of the work that you're doing in terms of reaching out to young folks and letting them know they have a say. Here's how you use and wield that power in a way that's effective for so many people. Representatives, as we wrap up, I'll say this and then we'll come back. We're definitely going to have you back on because I love what your take on working with the younger voters. And I think it can be prototypical in terms of what other elected officials can be doing, certainly in my mind, to help to bring younger voters into the mix. It's tangible stuff. It's local. It's like right here, down the street, those 10 businesses, that strip mall. I want you in there talking to them about what's going on. I mean, I don't mean to speak to what you're doing, but you're literally, kind of empowering the young folks, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. And they're coming in and you're creating a base, right, of folks that have energy, that want to canvas, that are asking me then later for recommendation letters to go to college, right? I've done so many already in the past few years. So it's a win-win, and you have to tap into that.
Absolutely. That's great. Last question, in terms of how you're working with other caucus leaders or heads of caucuses and other communities of color and communities that have in some ways been marginalized. How are you coordinating and working with, the Asian caucus, the Black caucus, women's caucuses and such to have that partnership that Ms. Preckwinkle talked about?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really important is just having communication. Having those communication conversations that don't feel transactional. I think at the end of the day, our caucuses understand what the needs are, especially those that are assigned to go into leadership, right? There has to be a level of understanding of the reality of where we're at and the reality of the needs that exist. And for me, it's important that I express that to my colleagues that yes, representation is my priority. Yes, Latino needs to be at the table, but I'm willing to have conversations with other folks from other communities so we can be fair on how we're going to address the budget deficit that we have, right? How are we going to make sure that all of us get something for our communities where one doesn't feel they get more than the other?
Yeah, that's great to hear. Representative Norma Hernandez, y'all. She's from the 77th District here in Illinois, one of the local leaders that's sending a message out that's a national message about bringing our youth together, helping inspire them, keeping them moving forward, and then working with other colleagues in the state to make sure that we have a better place here in Illinois. Representative, it's been a pleasure to have you with us this morning. I really look forward to having you back to kind of give us an update. As the weather changes, we know that our young folks are going to be out and about, and love to get your take on some of the things that you're doing to help them in that space. So will you join us again in the future?
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Representative Norma Hernandez, thanks for being with us this morning. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right.
Take care.
Bye now. Yeah, guys, that's what we have. We got good leaders. They're learning as they go. They're bringing their experience and their talents to the table, and we have to continue to help encourage them to do better and give them their flowers when they do good and then when they do well. So she's one of those folks. Good to have her with us this morning. All right, we're going to just grab some quick calls, as I said we would. Let's go to our friend Bill up in Wisconsin. Bill, thanks for holding, man. Welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, Richard. Thank you for taking my call. First of all, I want to give you credit for the way you and the other hosts on this radio station stay focused, because as I listen to your guests and yourself, I've got tentacles of thought going all over the place. But I do want to focus on one major support column of current Republican theory, and that is privatization. Now, from my perspective, you and I, as American citizens, have an equal share of a democratic government with a small d. And every citizen has that share. And even though we might represent congressmen and senators and presidents, that doesn't mean that we sacrifice our share of ownership. We still own that. But I would like to see the Democratic Party start pursuing a policy where they get some folks who are very good at workshop on computers, take photographs of iconic buildings representing our government and overimpose for sale signs on them, because that's what privatization really boils down to. And we need to have this visual so that people who can't listen to more than 5 or 6 words can see it and ingest that into their brains. Because this BS that's out there from the Republican Party needs to stop, and stop now. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, Bill, good to hear your voice, and stay safe, man.
You too. Bye.
Bill's up in Wisconsin, guys. All right, let's see if we can grab another couple quick ones before we wrap up. Let's go to Teddy, I think it is. Ooh, Teddy, it's hard to hear you, man. Close your windows.
One second. I think it's... Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I can hear you better. You may have to take off a speakerphone. A little bit of an echo there. Good morning. What's going on? We got a couple quick minutes. What's happening?
Hey, actually, it's Eddie. Called a couple times before we talked about Naperville.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey, okay, so pretty much I want to touch base on, a lot of people need to wake up, because that border czar came out and said Chicago's well-educated. They call it Know Your Rights. I call it How to Escape Arrest. That should tell people right then and there what their intentions are.
Yep. That's right.
And something that I've also been seeing on like a skyrocket, and I've seen it in person, is that there'll be Spanish speakers, whether or not it's at a store or on the street, and I'll see ICE agents just walk up. And now they got Dr. Phil out here. What is this man doing out here?
Look, man. I literally, I haven't even touched on that with Dr. Phil because I didn't want to blow a gasket. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's totally okay, because, you got to have a little funniness in the darkness, all right, occasionally. That's why I like calling in, give everybody their little entertainment thing. But imagine that. Me and you, we get captured by ICE. We're not crying because we're deported. We're crying because our dad went to the store for milk like 18 years ago. Dr. Phil will have you crying for a whole different reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why they have him out there.
The dumb.
I don't know if it's one of those things where they want him to confess to more than he's already in trouble for.
Jeez.
Yeah. It just reminded me of a scary movie when he was locked up with Shaq in that one room in the Saw game. He's just looking at Dr. Phil, and he's like, just help out the ICE agents, help me, help you, help me, help them. And I'm just like, God damn it. And then they're like, these people are criminals. Okay, what are you doing at the local elementary school? What did they do?
Yeah, exactly. Creepy McCreepness, Good Lord. Good Lord.
Thank you for having me on, Rick.
All right, man. Stay safe out there, okay? And thank you for your contribution. He's like, okay, Dr. Phil. I haven't even touched on it this week, guys, by design, because I don't want to blow a gasket on that dude. Fake a doctor. All right, let's go to Victor real quickly from the northwest corner of the great United States of America. Victor!
Richard Chew, how do you do?
I'm here, man. I'm doing well. What's going on?
Your guests have been really up to the top level today.
Thank you.
And they all correct when they said that this is just the opening salvo of Elon Musk and Trump to stump.
Yeah.
So we got to be prepared, like you say. And I believe that the reason why Donald Trump had to backtrack was because it was not just Democrats. It was Republicans that called their congressmen and informed them that if they take away try to take away any benefits that help us, like food stamps and Medicaid and other programs, that it'll be on their heads.
Yeah.
This is sort of a veiled threat, but it should be put in such a way that they understand that if they try to pass any legislation that's going to harm them in rural states and Democrats and Republicans, that it's just not going to fly. So you're right. We have to be on guard and prepared. They're not going to give up. They, like one of your guests said, they want to take away all our entitlements and programs, and just so that they can pass a $1 trillion tax cut to the billionaires and the corporations. One of your guests said that it was all for tax cuts, but it was tax cuts for billionaires and corporations. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
And so you are our warrior on the air for freedom. So keep up the great work, Mr. Chu. And out here on the West Coast, we are depending on you.
Thank you, Victor. Appreciate that, man. And glad you're doing well. As always, good to hear your voice and your contribution. So make it a great day, okay? You
too, and stay well yourself, buddy.
I will, Victor. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. All right, guys, listen. You look up and was like, almost time to wrap it up. As always, thanks to my man Henry. He's been bouncing back and forth today. You guys can't see it, but he's been all over the place. Got those roller skates on and oiled up and doing his thing. So thanks, Henry, for getting our guest on and getting people in place. I always appreciate that, and our callers as well. Listen, guys, we have some great leaders in our party. Ms. Preckwinkle and Ms. Hernandez are true representatives of that. Ironically, happen to both be women and women of color. Elected, selected, proven. That's why I wanted them to give their backgrounds, their histories. Ain't no DEI in that. Period. For all you whatever's out there. They can run circles around you, as so many of these great women leaders we have in the private sector and in the public sector, in education and social work, and the list goes on. So boys, step up. Stop giving the women so much damn heat. Ladies are getting it done. We as men need to step up and get behind them and stay behind them. And for that, I will say, take a deep breath, make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.